Well, first up, news from Iraq, where police and protesters have been clashing, and especially in the city of Nassiriya today. The nationwide death toll, however, has risen in the anti-government protests and is now nearly at 100 in just a matter of 4 days. Gunshots were heard as the civil unrest claimed 18 lives in Nassiriya alone. Authorities have imposed curfews in a number of cities, with the military convoys being sent to Nassiriya. Reinforcements have also been sent to the capital Baghdad. Anti-government protests have also spread to other major Iraqi cities, including Amara and Najd. Meanwhile, in a distressing incident, the police snipers were seen firing at demonstrators. Iraq is witnessing its worst crisis after the defeat of the Islamic State. Protests against unemployment, low standard of living and corruption have been brewing for long. Demonstrators are now demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Adil Mahdi, who has pledged to roll out reforms, saying that there was no magic solution to Iraq's problems. Meanwhile, religious leaders have also weighed in on the protests. Iraq's Grand Ayatollah Ali Sistani said that the government must change its approach in dealing with the country's problems.
المرجعية الدينية العليا طالما طالبت القوى والجهات التي تمسك بزمام السلطة أن تغير من منهجها في التعامل مع مشاكل البلد.
And well, writer and political analyst Dr. Wael Awad is now joining us live for the very latest on the situation in Iraq. And well, Dr. Awad, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. And it seems, well, that this is the first major challenge to Mr. Mahdi's fragile government, that has been in place for nearly a year since he came to power. What are you reading into this?
Yes, actually this is a major event have taken place in Iraq, and most of the Iraqi people have no leader in the street who has been taken their own demand into their own hands, and they have been demonstrating against corruptions, against unemployment, against shortage of water and electricity, and also the malpractice of the government, where there is no accountability against any officers in this government who has not been subjected to any kind of checking and finding out about the corruption in Iraq. So therefore this movement is really was gaining ground till some of the religious leaders and the prime ministers and the parliament met, and they have decided that they will succumb to the pressures of the street and come back to meet the demand of the people without jeopardizing the country. And in fact, many of the security officers in Iraq have been captured, those who were shooting directly on the head on the demonstrators, and also some of the security forces lost their life because we don't know who was those snipers who've been shooting, and the government now taking a stern action against them. But nevertheless, the people of the street at this moment, we are getting the news from Baghdad that it is very tense, but there is no visible demonstration at this moment, and the government trying to remove all the barricades and all the burning tires from the street and trying to open the roads for the public. And I think the government has to meet the demand of the people in the street.
Right. Okay. So it's good to know that, things are getting better, although the news is, of course, that 100 people have died. That's a huge number of people having died in just 4 days of protests. But Dr. Awad, now, how can Mr. Mahdi actually resolve this crisis in the long run? Is there, as he said, there is no magic solution to unemployment and, and other issues that are chronic to Iraq at this moment, but also the element of course, the sacking of Lieutenant General Abdul Wahab al-Sadi that is also playing out on the streets.
Well, let me just give you a little brief history of Iraq. Iraq never had any stable period in the history of Iraq, actually speaking, from the Abbasid period till today. And after the American invasion in 2003, where they have dissolved the security apparatus, they dissolved the Ba'ath Party and the army and everything in the street, and it left open. So everybody was taking the law into their own hand till the American generals were looking after Iraq affairs. And of course, you remember the governor Bremers, he put 100 commandments agreements, and he was demanding that the Iraqi government follow. And there was a constitution built up in Iraq where they have divided Iraq, sectarianly divided Iraq, in a democratic process, they call it, where they have now, like Balkanization of Iraq and like the Libanization as well, where now they have a prime minister, he's a Shia, the president is a Kurd, and the parliament speaker should be a Sunni. So all this kind of segregation and division of Iraq have taken place ever since the American invasion. And in fact, all the government in Iraq never met the demand of the people. And you remember Daesh, the terrorist organization that have taken place in Iraq and in Syria, and they create havoc in the country. So people in the street have always been resenting of not getting their own welfare, improved. And remember Iraq as well, it is one of the richest country in the Arab world and in the world, the largest reservoir of oil, and 30 cents only the cost of one barrel that they can take. And imagine, there are more than 40% of the Iraqis under the poverty line. There is no water supply, there is no electricity. How can you see this kind of suffering for the people? And all this corrupted government, corrupted officers who have taken over are unable to meet the demand. Now, if the government does not meet the demand of the Iraqi people, then the political party will start coming into the street. The religious leaders are appealing to the people not to go and get these things happening.
Right.
So I believe the government has to take a swift action, may go for an early election, or may also meet the demand of the street. Otherwise, we may find the bloodshed in the Iraqi street, and unrest will be continued. That is the main dangerous of the ICAN force.
Right. Dr. Awad, also, of course, the largest opposition bloc in parliament is now demanding Iraqi government to resign and call for snap elections. Do you think that elections, as you said, are a solution here, or the opposition is just trying to make, get some benefit out of this?
I think the only solution at this moment is to call for election. See, there are movement in the street, people movement, where there is no leaderships on that. And those demand, as you can see in many of the Arab capitals nowadays, many people coming into the street and they are taking the law into their own hand, and they wanted the demand to be met. So therefore, if the government does not meet their demand, I think a swift and early election could be the only way out, because Iraq, a security body, is very weak. And also remember that also all this movement have taken place only when Iraq opened its border checkpoint with the Syria. There was a pressure on the Iraqi government, and then they have also gone to China to make a good relation. So there are vested interest countries who wanted to see Iraq bleeding, and I think unless and until the government and the visionary leader of Iraq realize the danger ahead, I think there will be more bloodshed if they don't meet and they call for an early election. There is no way out, because the people are really, it's going to be bloody, and most of the party in the government may also come to the street to take full advantage of this demand, and they will be claiming that they are meeting the demand of their own people in the street.
Right. All right, Dr. Awad, thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening and sharing your perspective of what's happening in Iraq at this moment. And Dr. Awad, they're saying the solution could, of course, be one of them being an early